Hello and welcome to August. Almost. As you can see, I am still in this ensemble from the last video. The weather has not changed at all. It's still raining, still humid, still hot. I'm kind of terrified of August this year because normally August is the hottest month of the year, which usually I love. But summer has been one heat wave after another this year, and I'm kind of scared of what that means for August. I just don't want to melt to death, you know? Anyway, the majority of July has been spent getting my mid-year setup, my August setup, and my August weeklies all filmed and edited. It was a little hectic and a little exhausting, but I made it. I'm glad it's all done though, and I'm looking forward to finally getting some work done on those journals. I'm not so great at multitasking, so I just prefer to put all of my energy and time into one thing at a time. Then each task gets my full attention and properly gets done, as opposed to half-assing both things at once. Anyway, here we are starting with the cover page. This theme is all about sunflowers, and I think it may be the first flower I've picked that actually suits the month. I tend to just randomly pick a flower each month with no regard for the actual season, so this one has actually lined up nicely. Also, keep an eye on those candles throughout the video for an idea of how long this setup actually took. I think I had over 10 hours of footage, so I consider this a small miracle to get this first half of this setup into a 20-minute video. Sunflowers are surprisingly time-consuming to draw, which I didn't realize until I got about halfway through this cover and started wondering about how much time I had been at this one drawing. I think part of my problem was worrying about this ending up looking too much like a daisy because their structure seems to be really similar. Daisies seem to have a smaller center though in comparison to sunflowers that more or less have an equal petal to center ratio. But I forgot this often in the setup, so some of the proportions may look a little wonky throughout the video. I think after I drew my 30th flower, I just stopped caring so much. Okay, so I googled so many pictures of sunflowers to try and get an idea of what the hell is in the center of them. I still can't really figure it out. They're kind of like tiny nubs surrounded by slightly bigger but still tiny nubs. I gave up on trying to figure it out and just opted to draw small and tiny circles in their place. They also have this kind of gap in between the two areas of nubbies, and I can't tell if there's even tinier nubs in there or if it's literally just blank, so I left it as just blank. I wasn't prepared to have to do a deep dive on the anatomy of a sunflower. They're weird flowers, apparently. Serif font is one of those things that always appeals to me. They just look so classy, and I'm always trying to add some class to my journal. So I took ages trying to draw the perfect serif font for the header. I drew it so that the sunflower actually overlaps the text since it's supposed to be the star of the show this month. Then I got into detailing the petals, which is always where floral drawings start to come to life a bit. I still don't entirely know what I'm doing when it comes to shading and detail work, but I do know that my drawings tend to look a little better when I add these details to the base and the tips of the petals. So that is good enough for me. The same goes for leaves too. I especially have no idea how to properly detail a leaf drawing, so I basically just add these lines going from the center to the outside of the leaf. Maybe on another year sometime I'll focus on leaf themes and I'll learn how to actually draw the right kind of leaf. But not today. Also, sorry for the constant camera movement throughout this video. I seem to have this issue every time I film, and I'm pretty sure it's because of my massive amount of hair. I try to keep the camera elevated pretty high so I don't hit it, but my hair was also elevated pretty high on top of my head. So we can see who won the match here for the tallest competitor. Alright, now we're moving on to the monthly spread. And if you're paying any more attention than I was in the moment, you'll notice that I accidentally added an extra week onto the calendar. Not a big deal, it'll just give me a little extra glimpse into the next month, right? Along the right side, I've made a big old border of sunflowers. Here's a fun little memory, speaking of sunflowers actually. A year or two ago, my husband and I went to a sunflower maze because we heard so many good things about them. And every time I see pictures of a sunflower field, I literally can't handle the cuteness. So we went on a road trip one day to go visit one. It probably took us about an hour or so to drive out there, but it was a beautiful day, so we weren't complaining. And when we got there was nothing. It was literally a dirt hill. No sunflowers. Not even grass. It was literally a hill with nothing on it. It certainly wasn't a maze, because we could look over the entire dirt patch and see the end. So that was fun. I guess the sunflower maze for now will remain on the bucket list until we can find a legitimate one. It was funny when we got there too, because we could see the dirt hill. We just assumed that the maze was on the other side of it. But nope, that hill was the maze. And the people there gave us $5 off the ticket because they said it was the slow season. I'm a little amazed now that they charged anything at all, because their idea of a slow season should actually be the off season. Like, if you don't have sunflowers, how are you going to charge for a sunflower maze that doesn't exist? Well, it made for funny memories at least. Funnily enough, this actually happened another time with a different situation. When I was engaged, I went to a lavender festival as part of a little trip with my sister-in-law and mother-in-law. We heard so many amazing reviews of people raving about this festival, so we thought it'd be fun. And when we got there, again, there was nothing. There was just like a few garden plots of lavender flowers, which were beautiful. That was basically it. There was a tent with some guy giving lectures on lavender uses, and someone selling store-bought frozen hamburgers for like $5 each, and the tiny gift shop. And I kid you not when I say that was it. That was literally it. We were so confused. Where was the festival? How were people raving about this? Anyway, this spread is a food log. If you follow me on Insta, you know I've been talking a little bit about some food sensitivity struggles I've been having. I've been getting a ton of cramps and bloatiness from certain foods, and I'm not really sure what the reason is yet. But while I tried to figure that out, I figured a food log would be a really helpful way of tracking what I'm eating and what symptoms they've been giving me. In this spread, I included a section for each symptom I've experienced so far. Cramps, bloat, gas, and bathroom. Sorry if that's TMI. But if we're gonna talk about real problems, then we gotta get real, right? Under each column, I'll basically just write a check mark for each symptom I experience for a food. I may actually use like 1 to 3 check marks to indicate how bad each symptom is. On the other side, we have my goals and focus for the month. In my last video, I talked about setting up my yearly goals and how I work on my monthly and weekly goals from those. So from those goals, I make smaller ones that will help me to achieve the big ones. I've divided it up into 4 categories: personal, work, physical health, and mental health. I'll make a few small goals for the entire month to work on that will move me into the direction of achieving my yearly ones. And of course, I made more serif fonts for both of these pages and more sunflowers. Sunflowers for days. onto the Braindom page, or in this case, I've renamed it to Thoughts and Such. Note that the candles have changed. The first one kicked the bucket after like 3 hours of filming. I also quite enjoy how they match the color schema this month. I should do that more often if I can manage to plan ahead a little more. Okay, so on the left we have another huge border of sunflowers. Not much else to say about that, so enjoy some lovely tunes instead of my voice. Alright, so by the time I got to the habit tracker, I was exhausted by drawing so many sunflowers. So for this spread, I opted for a smaller box filled in with them, which I originally thought would be less work, but it's still a ton of flowers. They're just smaller. So I'm not sure where my logic went there. I've been playing with a bunch of different layouts lately for habit trackers, so this month I just kind of wanted to go something a little more basic and minimal. Literally just a horizontal strip across the 2 pages where I'll add a dot for each day I complete the habit. I haven't decided yet if I'll make it a black dot or a yellow dot. How fancy do I really want to go? As per tradition now, I've included a spot in my journal next to the review page for the big old jumbo drawing of the themed celebrity guest. I love that you guys have been enjoying them too, because it gives me good reason to practice. On the other side, we of course have the review page. The past few months I've been trying out the same format for this spread, but I was getting kind of bored of it and I don't think it was really helping me align with my progress and goals. So I'm trying out something new this month. I have the page split into 4 categories. The first section is just where I'll write a few words about how the month went overall in terms of enjoyment and what I did. The second section will be for the things that I accomplished or what I'm proud of. The third section will be for what I struggled with or what I could do better in. And the fourth section will be for what I plan to focus on in the next month. I'm hoping that this will help me keep on track with my goals and stay focused on what I need to do each month. Then I added a little rating system at the bottom for how I think the month went overall. And here we are at the final flippy flip. You may notice that I actually skipped over a page there. I haven't made it yet, but it's actually going to be a fun new one for me in dedication to something kind of special. I won't make a video for it on YouTube, but do keep an eye out on Instagram because I'm definitely going to be sharing it. I appreciate you taking time out of your day yet again to join me here, and I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for part 2 next week, which will be all of the weeklies. One of these weeklies I am super excited about too. Just saying. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye!